They say it's the quietest days that echo the loudest. And I know that now, more than ever. That day started like any other. The kind of day where nothing is supposed to happen. No big plans. No visitors. No chaos. Just stillness. David had left early for his trip. He barely said goodbye, just grabbed his bag, kissed my cheek, and muttered something about traffic. He didn't look me in the eye. But honestly, I didn't expect him to. Not anymore. I watched him pull out of the driveway from the kitchen window. And when the car disappeared down the street, I thought, finally, just me, the house, and some peace. But I had no idea what was really on its way. You know that feeling? When you're so used to being ignored, you stop realizing you're lonely. That's where I was. Not sad. Not happy. Just somewhere in the middle. Like I'd pressed pause on who I used to be. I wandered through the house barefoot. The tiles were cold under my feet. I hadn't turned on any music yet. I didn't need to. Because the silence, the kind that wraps around your shoulders like a blanket, it felt comforting. At least, at first. I made myself a cup of tea, chamomile. Not because I needed to relax, but because I liked the ritual. Something small I could control. Something still mine. The wind outside was calm. The curtains barely moved. And the clock on the wall ticked like it had all the time in the world. And then, it happened. The sound that shouldn't have been there. Soft, almost gentle, but real. A knock. Just once. Like it wasn't sure it belonged. At first, I thought I imagined it. Maybe it was the old wood creaking. Or the wind brushing against the doorframe. But then it came again. 3 soft taps. Deliberate. Almost intimate. And that's when my heart sank. Not because I was scared, but because something in me knew that my world was about to shift. And I couldn't stop it. I walked to the door, each step slower than the last, like part of me wanted to see who it was. And part of me desperately didn't. I wasn't dressed up. Just an old robe. Hair tied up. No makeup. Just me, in my most honest, unguarded form. And as my hand touched the doorknob, that tiny voice inside, the one I hadn't heard in years, whispered, "Don't open it." But I did. And what I saw on the other side wasn't danger, wasn't fear. It was him. And just like that, the air inside the house changed. The silence shifted. The day stopped being ordinary. You know, I used to think I understood betrayal. I thought it looked like angry words, late-night lies, cheating texts. But betrayal, real betrayal, sometimes wears a kind face, a familiar smile, and it shows up when you least expect it. That knock on the door? It wasn't just a sound. It was a beginning. If you've ever felt unseen, unheard, or just tired of pretending everything's fine, this story is for you. Subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold, because what happens next, it might stay with you forever. I've been married for 8 years. To the outside world, we look fine. He works. I keep the house in order. We smile when we're supposed to. But inside these walls, something's been missing for a long time. David is kind, polite, responsible. But lately, he feels like a ghost in our home. He's here, but not really. His body fills the space, but not his presence. He walks past me like I'm furniture. We don't argue. We just don't speak much at all. Our conversations are practical. Groceries, bills, who's taking the car in for service. We sleep back to back. He falls asleep within minutes, and I lie there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, wondering when we stopped touching, when we stopped feeling. It's not that I stopped loving him. I just stopped feeling seen. Like I became wallpaper in my own life. Background noise to a man chasing something outside these walls. He works long hours, always on the move, always tired. He says it's for us. But sometimes, I wonder if it's just a convenient way to avoid us. I used to teach high school English. I gave it up after we moved here. He got a better job, and we thought maybe it was time to start trying for a baby. We didn't try long. Or maybe we just stopped pretending we were trying. Now I spend most days in this house, cleaning things that don't need cleaning, rearranging shelves, cooking meals that get eaten in silence, and sometimes just sitting, wondering if this is what my life is now, waiting for someone who never really shows up. We live on a quiet street. Suburban. Too quiet. Sometimes I hear the neighbors' kids playing outside. Sometimes I don't hear anything at all. The floorboards creak in the hallway. The photos on the wall are from better times, wedding smiles, vacations, birthdays. But even those smiles, when I look closer now, they feel posed. Like we were already starting to drift, but didn't know it yet. There's a picture of me and David in the hallway. He's got his arm around me, and I'm laughing at something. I can't remember what. I can't even remember the last time I laughed like that. Loneliness doesn't scream. It sighs. It lives in the way your footsteps echo when you walk through your own house. It hides in the sound of a dinner plate placed gently on a table for one, even when you're married. It curls up next to you at night and holds you tighter than your husband ever does. That was my life. A quiet ache. A slow fading. No fights. No drama. Just emptiness. So when I opened that door, when I saw him standing there, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't suspicious. I was awake. For the first time in a long time. And that should have scared me. But it didn't. It was a Tuesday. David had just left that morning for a business trip, 3 nights away. I watched his taillights disappear around the corner, then closed the door. I had the whole house to myself. No one to cook for. No fake conversations. Just space. I planned to clean the guest room, fold some laundry, maybe read. But mostly, I just wanted to sit in the silence and feel whatever it was I hadn't let myself feel in a while. I was in the kitchen, wiping down a counter that was already clean, moving slowly. No rush. No urgency. Then I heard it. The doorbell. Soft at first. One long chime. Not frantic. Not repeated. Just one. I froze. My hand still on the towel. I wasn't expecting anyone. And no one ever just shows up. Not here. Not on the street. I glanced at the clock. A little after 10. Too early for a delivery. Too late for a neighbor's mistake. I moved toward the front window, pulling the curtain just enough to peek through. But there was no car. No one on the lawn. No sign of a package. I waited. Maybe they left. Maybe it was a fluke. Then another knock. This time, not the bell. 3 quiet taps. Knuckles against wood. Slow. Measured. Intentional. My stomach tightened. Not in fear. But something else. Like my body sensed something my mind hadn't caught up with yet. I opened the door. And standing there was Jordan, David's best friend. He wasn't smiling out of politeness. It wasn't that kind of smile. It was softer. Too familiar. Too knowing. He looked out of place. Like someone caught between a choice and a memory. He wasn't dressed for anything special, plain jeans, black hoodie, hands in his pockets. But his eyes met mine like he'd been waiting for this moment. Like he expected me to open the door, even if I hadn't expected to see him. I blinked. Words sat heavy in my throat. He spoke first. Hey. I was in the neighborhood. I nodded, still not stepping back. Still unsure. We weren't close. We'd shared dinners. Laughed a few times. Talked casually when he came over for football or barbecue. But he and David were the ones with history. So why was he here? Now? While David was gone. And why did he look at me like that, like I was more than just his friend's wife? He smiled again. That same soft, unreadable smile. And I opened the door a little wider. Because for some reason I still can't explain. I didn't want him to leave. Jordan and we've always been polite. Civil. Never close. Never more than we had to be. So why did my stomach twist when he stepped inside? Why did I suddenly feel aware of everything? of the robe I was wearing, of the way my hair was tied up, of the faint scent of lotion still lingering on my skin. He said he was just passing by, that he had a meeting in the area and thought he'd stop in, say hello. His voice was casual. His smile was soft. But none of it felt casual. And all of it felt intentional. I stepped back. He walked in slowly, his eyes scanning the living room. The books stacked on the coffee table. The folded laundry on the couch. The untouched tea on the side table. Then he glanced at me. Not with surprise. Not with discomfort. But like he already knew what he was doing. He sat. Like he'd done it 100 times before. But he hadn't. We weren't that kind of familiar. Not until that moment. He noticed the kitchen sink. The slow drip David had promised to fix for weeks. He stood, walked over, turned the handle. Tightened something. The dripping stopped. There, he said. Should hold for now. I thanked him. My voice felt too small in my throat. We sat again. And talked. But not about David. Not about work. Not about anything safe. He asked how I was. Really asked. Not the way people do out of obligation. But like he meant it. Like he actually cared what the answer might be. I told him I was fine. The lie came too quickly. He didn't challenge it. But he didn't believe it either. I could see it in his eyes. That quiet way he studied me. Noticing too much. Saying too little. There was something different in his tone. And in his silence. Something too soft. Too aware. It wasn't loud. It wasn't obvious. But it was there. I laughed at something he said, some silly story about his job, and he smiled at the sound. Like it mattered to him. Like it meant something. And I hated how long it had been since anyone looked at me that way. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe I wanted to. Maybe my mind was pulling tricks to fill a space that had been empty too long. But there was a warmth in his gaze I hadn't felt in years. Not from David. Not from anyone. And I hated myself for noticing. I crossed my legs. Shifted in my seat. Tried to put distance between us without moving an inch. But it didn't help. Because the space wasn't the problem. It was the feeling. The pull. The sudden ache in my chest I didn't know how to name. And beneath it all was the quiet, guilty truth I didn't want to admit. I didn't want him to leave. He stayed longer than he should have. 1 hour became 2. And somehow it didn't feel strange. Not at first. We sat by the window. Talked about music, travel, old cities we both wanted to visit. The kind of conversation I hadn't had in years. The kind where someone actually listens, not waiting for their turn to speak. Just listening. He asked me what books I liked. What places I missed. What memories I kept tucked away. David never asked me those things. Not anymore. I laughed once, genuinely, and he said, "I forgot you laugh like that." I looked at him, unsure of what to say. He looked back. No apology in his face. Just quiet honesty. I stood to grab something from the kitchen, and when I handed him a napkin, his fingers brushed mine. It was accidental. But he didn't pull away right away. Just let the contact sit there for a second longer than it needed to. A small thing. Barely a moment. But I felt it. He complimented my earrings. Said he'd never noticed them before. That they suited me. I smiled, said thank you. But inside, I was spiraling. Why was I noticing everything he said? Why was I holding on to the sound of his voice? Why did I care? Then he looked at the clock. Said he should probably head out. And almost as if on cue, it started to rain. Not a drizzle. A sudden, heavy downpour. The kind that fills the gutters and washes out the street. He stood at the door. Hand on the handle. Hesitating. I could have let him go. Could have said nothing. Instead, I said, "You can wait it out here. I'll make some coffee." He nodded once. Softly. No questions. I walked into the kitchen, hands trembling a little more than I wanted to admit. He followed, quietly. We stood near the counter. The only sound was the drip of the coffee maker and the rain hammering the windows. I handed him a mug. Our fingers touched again. And this time, It didn't feel accidental. It was just coffee. But the moment our hands met around the same mug, something shifted. The air in the room grew heavier. The silence between us, louder. He looked at me. Not down. Not away. Straight at me. And, for the first time, I didn't look away either. I wish I could say I didn't feel it, that my heart didn't beat faster, that my hands weren't shaking around that warm coffee mug, that I didn't notice how close he was standing, how quiet the world had gone outside the sound of rain and breath. But I did feel it. Every single thing. He was still talking. Something light. Something safe. But his eyes, they weren't saying safe things. They were asking. And I was answering without words. Just silence. Just stillness. I don't even remember what he said before it happened. I only remember the moment he reached up. His hand near my face. The way he hesitated, just long enough to make me feel it. And then, he tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. I closed my eyes. I don't know why. I just did. Like my body surrendered without permission. And when I opened them, he was looking at me like he knew. Like he saw the part of me I'd kept buried. The part that had been aching for years. Then he leaned in. Slow. Not a question. Not a demand. Just gravity. And I let him. The kiss. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't wild. It was quiet. Soft. But it was full of everything we never said. Everything we'd been pretending not to feel. When he pulled back, he didn't say a word. And neither did I. But the silence, it was deafening. It said everything. It said this wasn't supposed to happen. It said you can't take this back. It said now what? I stared at him. But I couldn't look him in the eye for long, because I wasn't sure who I was in that moment. I wasn't a wife. I wasn't even me. I was someone else, someone I didn't recognize. Someone who'd been hiding in the shadows of loneliness, just waiting for a hand to reach into the dark. And he did. He reached. And I didn't stop him. Not because I didn't know better, but because in that moment, I wanted to feel something real. Anything real. Even if it broke everything else. He left without another word. Just stood there for a second, then walked to the door, opened it, and disappeared into the rain. He didn't look back. And I didn't ask him to stay. The room felt colder after. Like he took all the oxygen with him. Like everything warm and safe had been stripped away in that one quiet moment. I stood in the kitchen for a long time. Still holding the mug. Still tasting the coffee. Still feeling the weight of what I let happen. Then I moved, slowly. Like someone waking up from a dream they wish they could forget. I washed the dishes. Each plate, each cup. Hands trembling so badly I almost dropped the glass. The guilt didn't creep in. It crashed. Landed right in the center of my chest and settled there, heavy and unmovable. I felt sick. Nauseous. But not from food or nerves. It was deeper. Shame. Regret. Fear. My phone buzzed just after 8. I shouldn't have come. I'm sorry. That's all it said. No name. No explanation. But I didn't need one. I stared at the screen for a while. Then turned it face down. Like that would make the words disappear. I tried to eat dinner. Couldn't. Pushed food around my plate until it got cold. Then dumped it in the sink and watched it swirl down the drain. David called around 9. His voice was tired, distracted. He asked how my day went. I said it was fine. Normal. Uneventful. My voice cracked on the word fine. He didn't notice. Or maybe he didn't care to ask. He talked about the hotel room. The meeting. Said he'd be home by Friday evening. I said okay. Just that. Then we hung up. I stood in front of the mirror after that. The bathroom light flickered a little. I leaned in and looked at myself. My eyes looked tired. My face pale. But it wasn't that. It was something else. I didn't recognize the woman staring back. Her expression. Her silence. The way she kept touching her lips like they still remembered what they shouldn't. I didn't know who she was. But I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't undo what had been done. I've played that moment 100 times in my head. Maybe more. Sometimes it comes to me when I'm folding laundry. Sometimes in the middle of the night, when David is sleeping beside me, his back turned, his breathing slow and steady. And sometimes, it just appears, like a memory that refuses to fade. Was it betrayal? Or was it me, finally feeling alive? Because in that 1 hour, with Jordan, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Seen, not glanced at, not spoken to out of routine, but seen. Like someone looked through me and didn't look away. I felt heard. Not because I had something profound to say, but because someone cared enough to listen. Really listen. And yet, with all of that, the warmth, the connection, I still feel sick when I think about it. I hate what I did. I hate that I didn't stop it. I hate that I didn't even want to stop it. I wonder if Jordan told David, if something in his voice gave us away. If one day, I'll walk into the living room and find everything shattered, not by truth, but by silence finally breaking. I wonder what would happen if it rained again. If he knocked. If I opened the door. Would we say the things we didn't say? Or pretend it never happened? Sometimes, I hope it never happens again. Other times, I'm afraid I hope it does. I wasn't looking for it. I swear I wasn't. But a part of me, the part that aches every night when I lie next to a man who no longer reaches for me, that part, didn't push it away either. And maybe that's the worst part. Knowing it wasn't just a moment that happened to me. I let it in. I opened the door. And now, I don't know how to close it. Have you ever wanted something only to realize you were never meant to have it? Something that felt so warm in the moment, so human, you forgot it could burn? Was I wrong for opening the door that day? Or was I just human? Was it betrayal? Or was it two people standing too close to the edge and leaning just a little too far? Because I didn't plan it. I didn't chase it. But when it came to me quietly, gently, I didn't turn away. Tell me in the comments, was it betrayal or just two broken people reaching for something they'd both lost? Something simple. Something soft. Something that felt like being wanted again. I need to know what you think. I need to know I'm not the only one who's felt this way. And if you believe these stories need to be told, if they echo something real inside you, like this video, subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold. Because here, we don't just tell stories. We unravel the human heart. Sometimes, the most dangerous visitors don't kick down the door. They knock gently. They smile kindly. They carry no warning. And they arrive exactly when you're most alone. Not to hurt you. Not to steal from you. But to offer something you didn't even realize you were starving for. And the worst part? Is realizing you let them in without ever turning the handle.